Hey, what's up, guys? So I'm bored. I'm here in lockdown here on Long Island, and I have nothing to do. So I figured why not make a video showing you some of the perfume bottles that are antique and vintage in my collection. And if you just started collecting perfume bottles, at least you'll get a little bit of an idea of what you can collect and more information about these type of bottles. So pretty much today perfume bottles serve as artifacts of luxury. A reminder that in bygone eras, the powder room was a place of beauty where form met and function in refined styles. Now, antique perfume bottles are so highly coveted that they became really, really collectible sometime in the mid 20th century. Probably actually starting in the 60s, people started really collecting bottles from the 20s and so on and so forth. Now, perfume bottles are typically constructed of glass, like this one here. This is a Victorian bottle. And they mostly have this form of style, the ones without the atomizers. It was a vessel to fill with liquids. And then later on, in like sometime in the 60s and on, they started using different kinds of materials besides glass. Now you might see some plastic bottles, which I think are ugly. Actually, in the 20s also, they started using different types of materials besides glass and porcelain, and they used things called like a material called celluloid. Celluloid was an early version of plastic before plastic really became commercialized. Now, a lot of times, like the older bottles will be in this type of form. They'll have generally like a metal top or a silver top. And then when you open them up, there'll be like a little plunger inside or a stopper. And then inside the bottle would be the vessel, I call it a vessel, would be filled with the oil or the perfume. Now, starting in the 19th century, perfume bottles were largely commissioned by perfume manufacturers to house their olfactory wares, and the bottles themselves have become as sought after as the fragrances they were once designed to hold. Now, eventually, perfume bottles were sold empty, like this one, and that allowed those who purchased them to fill them with the scent of their choosing. So, a lady in the Victorian era would get one of these empty bottles, they would purchase them, and they would go to what was known as an apothecary. An apothecary was almost like a pharmacist of today, except for these pharmacists were able to prescribe medications. And so they were like actually the lowest form of a doctor, a medical doctor. They were like low on the totem pole, and anyone could go in there and they could purchase, believe it or not, morphine, cocaine, and scented oils. So pretty much, if you ever heard of like snake oil, they were snake oil salesmen with a license. So a lady would go into one of the shops with these empty bottles, pick her scent, and he would fill up her little vessel. And that didn't sound right. Sorry, I have a little bit of a sick sense of humor. So now, after these went out of fashion, later perfume bottles employed atomizers, which are these little bulbs with the tubes. And you see another atomizer here. Now, there was all sorts of different kinds of atomizers. And here's another example of a 1920s atomizer. This was made by Marcel Franck in France. It has a mother of pearl body with brass, and this was a travel bottle. So a lady would place this in her purse in the 20s or the 30s, and this would actually close and become smaller to become more of a travel size. And if the lady pressed this down, she could turn it clockwise and it would close it and keep it shut. And if she wanted to open the pump, she would turn it counterclockwise with her finger and the pump would spring open. And then she could freshen up her scent anytime. So this again was made by Marcel Franck. It was called Le Kid. He gave it a interesting French name. And they came in all different designs. Some of them were wrapped in leather. Others had little gems on them. And again, this is their mother of pearl version. Quite interesting, right? Now, let me just show you. Now, we have all different countries represented here. Also, like here's an example of a actual, it's a British bottle. This was made actually in Birmingham, England, and this one was made in 1910. So here's an example of a scent bottle. A lady could buy this empty and fill it with her own scent. And a lot of these would have silver tops as well. Let me find my others. There's my other English bottle. And that's an example of a silver top bottle. This one just has a silver collar, and it has the mark of Birmingham on it. And the little diamond cut glass stopper could be removed, and a lady could place her scent in there. Now, I'll show you a close-up of the Birmingham version. Sorry this video is going to be a little long, but I figured if you guys are interested in these sort of antiques, that you won't mind. So here's another English bottle, and the bottle twists off. Some of these came hinged, and the little top was like attached to the bottle, and you didn't have to screw it on or off. You would just flick it up, and the top would stay on but be opened. So here's another idea of the styles. This is a hobnail pattern, I believe. This is a cut crystal. Now, these are all my refillable bottles. Again, a lady would go to the apothecary and pick out her scent. This one is really great. Now, most of these are Art Nouveau Era from about the 1890s. And for collectors, the sweet spot for any antique perfume collection is Art Nouveau Era bottles. And beginning around 1890, artisans and glass factories alike produced elaborate cut or blown glass perfume bottles with ornate caps, like you see here, and some which had hinged silver stoppers or collars. There we go. These are all silver tops. And a lot of them came with a cut glass stopper inside. They go missing. So a lot of times you'll find these bottles and they'll be missing the little glass stopper. I replaced them with little cork stoppers. So this is zipper cut glass. Very, very beautiful. I believe this is American. And it has a sterling silver top. Now this is, it's called Otto of Roses, or Otto Rose bottle. And it came with the scent in it already, with rose oil in it. This was most likely made by Baccarat in France. As you can see, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous cut crystal pattern. Very, very thick glass and very heavy. This one is an interesting one. This was known as a throwaway bottle. And a lot of people actually incorrectly list these when they're selling them and say that they're tear catcher bottles or lacrimatory bottles. That is not true. There's a myth that confused a lot of people over the years. Now, this bottle was a throwaway bottle. It already came with a few drops of scent in it, and a lady would purchase it, and when she was done with it, she would throw it out. They were crudely made, even though I think they're beautiful. And they came with a glass stopper in them, but I'm missing the glass stopper, so I made my own little crude one out of cork and painted it. But these bottles, again, these would be thrown in the garbage. They would never be used again. But some people decided to save them, which is great because now I have it in my collection. A lot of these bottles were made in Germany, believe it or not. So that's an interesting fact. The next one I'm going to show you is another bottle that someone would get filled up, again at an apothecary. And this is a Chata Wine bottle. Has a little chain on it, and a lady would have actually a hook attached to her belt, and this little finger ring here would hang to that hook on her skirt, and so that would dangle down from her waist. And these generally are hinged bottles. This one is probably from about 1870 to about 1890. It has beautiful Venetian glass. This pattern is really gorgeous, really lovely, like lemon colored bottle. And when you open it, it has the original glass stopper. So that's what they looked like. Very, very hard to find them with their original glass stoppers. The next one is around the same time frame. And this is a little glass bottle. And these are travel size bottles. I replaced the little cork stopper because it was missing. Now the next bottle I'm going to show you is a commercial bottle. So sometime around 1910, commercial perfumes became all the rage. A lot of companies, especially French scent companies, would sell these bottles with the scents in them and market them to ladies and even gentlemen. Some of the colognes and perfumes were actually unisex. So a man or a woman could actually wear the fragrance. This particular one is very rare. It's from about 1920. It was made by Charles Fay and Julien Viard. And Julien Viard was a sculptor, and he actually designed this set. And it's called La Tra. I believe it meant the three muses. And there's 3 cents in here in a caddy. And I'm sorry, Julien Viard actually had designed this and commissioned Baccarat of France, who was a glassmaker, to make these bottles for the company. And really, really, it's lovely. Has the original labels on them. They came with 3 different scents in them, and it has little muses on the sides of the caddy. Now these bottles come out and of this holder. I don't want to do it now, but you see how they all fit into each other? That's really cool. Now the next one is my most recent acquisition, and it's a piston pump atomizer. And this was probably made about 1910 to about maybe 1915. Now this was made by Theophilus Martin. He actually made the atomizer parts and sold them to French glassmakers, mostly French glassmakers. All the luxury glassmaking companies, like I'm trying to think, Baccarat, Lalique. Don't know if I pronounced that right, Lalique or Lalique. Also, trying to think of the other companies. Think it was, I can't think right now. My mind is going blank. But he also sold these pump pieces to Moser Glass in Bohemia. And this is a Moser one. It's beautiful aquamarine glass, very thick crystal, all hand painted with raised enamel work. And this is cool because you don't see too many of these. These actually seize up over time, and people had thrown these out over the years. Now this still works. Isn't that cool? Has a little cap on it that screws on, so when you're not using it, you don't lose the contents of the bottle. This was considered a travel bottle, and it's really quite lovely. Now, when you want to close it, you press this down and turn this clockwise, and the button stays down. When you want to use it, you turn it counterclockwise when you press down on it, and the atomizer part, which is the piston pump, pops up. So that's cool. Quite beautiful again. Look at that glass. Now the next one I'm going to show you is a dripper bottle. This is from the 1920s. It's Art Deco. It was made by an American company by the name of De Vilbiss. De Vilbiss made a lot of these atomizer pieces for their bottles and had the glass made by other companies. I believe this was made by the Cambridge Glass Company during the Great Depression in America, but they had other companies making their glass as well, even Czechoslovakian and French companies. So this is a dripper bottle. And so you pull this little piece out of the top, the dripper, and you can place this on your pressure points, and the perfume would drip onto your skin. Now the next one I'm going to show you is a 1930s Art Deco bottle. This is Bohemian, otherwise known as Czechoslovakian, and it's an atomizer. So it has the bulb and the tube, and you just squeeze it, and it would spray out your perfume onto your skin. Now, last but not least, I'm going to show you this one. This one's from about 1925 to about 1927 and as far as 1930. This is called a double crystal bottle. Now, the atomizer is marked made in France, but a lot of times a company by the name of Marcel Franck and others would get these pieces constructed in France, or they would make them in France and get the glass from Czechoslovakia, otherwise known as Bohemia. So this is really cool. This is double crystal. It's tomato red, has the original atomizer bulb and tube, which is hard to find. A lot of times the rubber actually hardens over time and these go missing. So it's always great to have the original pieces and the hardware to the bottles. So that's my collection, and I thought you guys would find it interesting. And I hope you guys are staying safe in lockdown, and I'll see you guys all soon. So long.